Welcome to This Week in the News here on Zodiac. This is Chansimula Zabanda. Some of the main stories in the week ending. Body of the country's former Vice President, Dr. Justin Malewezi, laid to rest in Lilongwe. MHRC finds forms of racial discrimination in an arrangement in which a private clinic in Blantyre was planning to provide COVID-19 vaccination to Asians. National Youth Council of Malawi says if empowered, the country's youths could spur economic growth. And in sports, Malawi Olympic Committee says it will use part of its funding to revive minority sports ahead of the 2025 Olympic Games. Stay with us, we have these and more. We start the news that the body of the country's former Vice President Dr. Justin Chimela Malewezi has been laid to rest at his Likuni home in Lilongwe. The funeral ceremony was attended by several dignitaries, including the Zambia-based Chewa King Kalonga Gawaundi. In his eulogy, President Lazarus Chakwera described the late Dr. Malewezi as a firm believer of peace, unity, and a source of wisdom. Winston Kaimina attended the ceremony and compiled this report.
The former Vice President has been praised by many for his contributions to national development as well as promoting Chewa cultural values. High-profile dignitaries who attended his funeral praised the late Dr. Justin Malewezi, describing his life as a symbol of great patriotism. In his eulogy, President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera said throughout his life, the former Vice President demonstrated the servant leadership, which is one of the pillars in his administration. He said the former Vice President played the advisory role in the President's political career, being one of Malawi's finest politicians as well as administrative official. Secretary in the Office of the President and Cabinet Zanga Jikosi also praised the late Dr. Malewezi, saying he served in various boards of government parastatals, apart from serving as Malawi Vice President, a cabinet minister, and a member of parliament. Speaking through a representative, Chewa Chief Kalonga Gawaundi described the late Malewezi, who worked as the founding chairman of the Chewa Heritage Foundation, as an individual who was the pillar of the cultural organization.
When I visited Malawi in 2005, I noticed that many Chewa people did not seem to have interest in promoting their cultural heritage. There was no organization that could spearhead the preservation and promotion of the Chewa culture. Upon this realization, I asked Dr. Malewezi, what is it that we could do to bring the Chewa people together to promote our culture? He came up with the idea of forming a foundation whose objectives would be to preserve, protect, and promote the Chewa culture.
A representative of the bereaved family, Leonard Mengezi, thanked the government for its assistance in efforts to save the life of late Dr. Malewezi. The late former Vice President, who was a member of the Anglican Church, was born on December 23, 1944, and hailed from Chizula village in the area of Traditional Authority Chiloko in Chisi district. He has been buried with full military honors at his residence in Likuni. Vice President Dr. Saulos Chilima, former Presidents Dr. Bagiri Muluzi and Dr. Joyce Banda, as well as Paramount Chiefs Gomani, Kawinga, and Mberwa, were some of senior officials present at the funeral ceremony. This is Winston Kaimira reporting for Zodiac.
On Friday, the Malawi Human Rights Commission MHRC found that there were forms of racial discrimination resulting into violation of human rights in an arrangement in which a private clinic in Blantyre was planning to provide COVID-19 vaccination to Asians. MHRC Commissioner Martha Chizuma has since recommended that officers implicated, including renowned pathologist Dr. Charles Zamalala, be disciplined by the Medical Council of Malawi. The clinic has been ordered to issue a public apology for its conduct. The findings contradicted the position of the Ministry of Health on the matter, which said there was no elements of discrimination in what had happened at the time. We had this report.
The Malawi Human Rights Commission has released 2 reports following investigations into suspected violation of human rights based on race and the budget tracking and analysis exercise conducted by the Commission. The report to do with the racial discrimination is about a private clinic in Blantyre which wanted to administer COVID-19 vaccination targeting Indians. In the report, which was presented by Commissioner Martha Chizuma, MHRC has 43 individuals who include renowned medical officer Dr. Charles Zamalala, for facilitating a process which aimed at administering the vaccine. She said the Commission has confirmed that the act was a form of racial discrimination, which is a violation of human rights. The Commission says both Blantyre District Health Office and Mamed Clinic violated the law. It recommends disciplinary action against some officers at Blantyre DHO and an apology from Mamed Clinic by 30th May this year. The Commission further says the Medical Council of Malawi should discipline Dr. Zamalala and Mamed Clinic for the action.
For anyone to take Johnny Mary as number 2, to come later to get those vaccines and prioritize the Asian and Indian community, that's unacceptable. That's disgraceful. That should not happen anywhere in Malawi. Dr. Zamalala, who attended the event, asked for more time before commenting to study the report. On the budget tracking and analysis report, MHRC has identified loopholes that need to be sealed for people in the country to ably enjoy human rights in the implementation of national budgets. The Commission also wants government to ensure the minimum 15% of the total budget funding allocation to the health sector is made as agreed by states under the Abuja Declaration. This is Winston Kaimira reporting for Zodiak.
The Association of Persons with Albinism in Malawi, APAM, has demanded an audit into how 600 million kwacha that was meant for construction of houses for its members was used. APAM President Ian Simbora has told us in the week that the funds were allocated in the 2019-2020 national budget as one way of enhancing security for their members, but he claims that no single house has been constructed. However, the Ministry of Land spokesperson Enoch Chingoni says the project was not funded. Aunyango Nkoma filed this report.
APAM President Ian Simbota says no single house has been constructed for the organization's members since 2019. He told Zodiak Thursday indoor that the funds were allocated in the 2019-2020 national budget for construction of houses across the country, aimed at boosting security of persons with albinism. He is now demanding an audit into how the funds have been used.
They had allocated 600 million kwacha for the construction of houses for persons with albinism. But by the promised time, until the end of the national budget of 2019-2020, we had not seen any structure, any house for persons with albinism constructed.
One of the APAM members, Indowa Chisisi Gama, says she is living in a dilapidated house, a situation which she says is a threat to her security. However, Ministry of Land spokesperson Enoch Chingoni says the project was not funded.
That project was not funded.
The number of reported crimes against people with albinism in Malawi is estimated at 170 cases, including more than 20 murdered since November 2014. For Zodiac in Idoa, this is Aunyango Nkoma reporting.
And earlier in the week, we got information that all government-funded construction projects in the north have missed their deadlines for completion. Contractors of Njakwa Livingstonia Road and Rumpi Teacher Training College attributed their failure to meet the project's deadline to funding woes. On Wednesday, Vice President Dr. Saulos Chilima toured some of the infrastructure development projects which are under construction and promised to source funds for them. Steve Zimba gave us the details.
Construction works for the Njakwa Livingstonia Road in Rumpi was supposed to finish on May 2020, but it has been revised twice from October 2020 to October 2021, while construction works of Rumpi TTC was supposed to finish in July 2020. The contractors for both projects have attributed the issue of missing deadlines to government's funding problems. Gianluza Bizarro of SR Nicholas is a contractor for Rumpi TTC project.
At the moment, we've got challenges on Lot 2, where we are a little bit behind. So if the funding falls in place, I can talk for the two where we are involved, that is Mchinji and Rumpi. By the end of the year, they can be completed.
Yesterday, Wednesday, Vice President Dr. Saulos Chilima toured some of the infrastructure projects in Rumpi and Mzuzu to appreciate progress.
There is the issue of the funding, which is a common feature as we travel across the country. That funding is an issue, and our commitment is to make sure that the projects that are already under construction must be completed. This is a very good structure, the Rumpi TTC.
The Vice President also toured Mzuzu University new library construction site that is expected to take 24 months to complete. The university lost almost all books and library equipment to fire. For Zodiak in Mzuzu, this is Steve Zimbabwe reporting.
The National Youth Network on Climate Change said environmental conservation has been a tall order in the country because the youths are often sidelined in initiatives to deal with degradation. A member of the network, Joanna Chigwenembe, explained that young people are mostly involved in conferences but not in the actual work on sites to bring back the lost vegetative cover. During the launch of NYNCC's 5-year strategic plan on climate change, Minister of Forestry and Natural Resources Nancy Tembo said government will find all means possible to empower and finance the youth in environmental initiatives. We have a report filed by Western Guta.
One of the members of the NYNCC, Joyce Chigwenembe, says for a long time the youths are only involved in conferences and not in the actual work on the ground, making it hard for environmental conservation to materialize.
There are a lot of innovative young leaders who are doing big things, but then they are doing them with money from their own pockets. So you can imagine it's very difficult to scale up most of these events.
NYNCC National Coordinator Dominic Nyasulu says only if young people position themselves and guided by a blueprint will strides in environmental conservation bear fruits and also turn it into a source of jobs.
Sometimes it's set an opportunity for us to be able to engage into socioeconomic enterprise. So we feel like while we are trying to address issues of environment and climate change.
The minister, therefore, Nancy Tembo, said being energetic and in majority, the youths need to be empowered and involved in every activity if they are to achieve bringing out the best out of the environment and natural resources.
They have to build their own institutional capacity in order to enable themselves do what they have set out to do. But also there's the issue of developing entrepreneurial skills, using waste, what are the green jobs that they can come up with.
The youths are hoping that at the end of the 5 years in 2025, they should be able to create jobs through making usable things out of the wasted natural resources. For Zodiac, I'm Western Guta.
You're watching This Week in the News on Zodiac. We still have got more to come. Please stay with us.
Special scholarships available at UNICAF University for bachelor, master's and doctoral degree programs. UNICAF University is accredited nationally by the NCHE and internationally by the British Accreditation Council in the UK. Enroll for internationally recognized degrees at a fraction of the cost, with the special scholarships available for the April-June 2021 intake. Feel safe knowing that your online studies with UNICAF University will not be disrupted by measures for the pandemic. From enrollment to graduation, everything runs smoothly online. Don't miss this golden opportunity. This offer is only valid until the end of June 2021. So apply today and get a free tablet when you register and pay the required deposit. Ring 01755 333 or WhatsApp 0993 907002 for more information.
For a better tomorrow, don't forget to do the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate every night.
Do you know, here at Lilongwe Water Board, we have in place a 24-hour call center just for you, our customers. Anytime you experience a water problem, don't hesitate to call us on 253 and it's free. Low water pressure, no water situation, billing queries, bill payment, pipe burst, pipe leaks, faults, tips, and illegal connections. Just dial 253 and we will assist you.
The National Planning Commission, NPC, and the Ministry of Economic Planning and Development and Public Sector Reforms wish to inform the general public about a change in the format for launching the country's new vision, Malawi 2063. In view of the recent spike in COVID-19 cases in the country, government has directed that the launch be changed from a physical one to a virtual platform. The MW 2063 will be launched by the President, His Excellency Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, on Tuesday 19th January 2021 from 9 a.m. The president and a few selected officials will formally launch the MW 2063 from Kamuzu Palace in Lilongwe, while all other distinguished and invited guests and members of the general public will follow the proceedings through various digital platforms such as Zoom and Facebook live streaming, as well as live coverage on all major radio and TV stations in the country. Malawi 2063 for an exclusively wealthy and self-reliant nation. Malawi 2063, dziko lodzidalira komanso lotukuka pachuma mokomera aliyense. For further information, contact NPC Public Relations and Communications Manager Tom Kanje on mobile phone 08888 79329 or email tkanje@npc.mw.
Building a successful business is not an easy task. It takes a lot of focus, hard work, persistence, determination, and sacrifices. With the passage of time, business growth is achieved to the amazement of the investor. After witnessing such growth, a strategic business person secures the business from risks that have the ability to ruin the investment. That is where the Prime Insurance Company comes in with a business insurance policy that targets small and medium enterprises. If you own a fuel service station, restaurant, lodge, clinic, farm, photography studio, retail or wholesale shop, you have an important partner in us. Without waiting for fate to strike on your investment, reach out to us at our offices in all the major cities of the country and get your business covered at affordable rates. Prime Insurance Company. We care and share in times of need.
Kungwonjezera mayunits ATNM kuyambira 200 kwacha kapena kuposera pamenepo mutha kukhala mmodzi mwa mamilioneya mu TNM Tikolole promotion. Koma mukaonjezera mayunits ndi 100 kwacha kapena kuposerapo mudzilandira mabonus oyimbira foni, SMS kapena data pompo.
TNM, always with you.
Welcome back. Here are the top stories again. Body of the country's former Vice President Dr. Justin Malewezi laid to rest in Lilongwe. MHRC finds forms of racial discrimination in an arrangement in which a private clinic in Blantyre was planning to provide COVID-19 vaccination to Asians. National Youth Council of Malawi says if empowered, the country's youths could spur economic growth. In sports, Malawi Olympic Committee says it will use part of its funding to revive minority sports ahead of the 2025 Olympic Games. Now, moving on with the news, the National Youth Council of Malawi says if economically empowered, the country's youthful population could be a catalyst for a national transformation and development. The country's Chief Executive Officer, the Council's Chief Executive Officer Nkhani Jerry made the observation Friday night when they hosted young CEOs from the private sector in Lilongwe to interact and share notes on how to enhance their businesses. Meanwhile, government has pledged to help the youths realize their dreams through, among others, provisions of loans. Madalitso Piri reports.
Chief Executive Officer for the National Youth Council of Malawi, Dingiswayo Jere, says they want to have a database of young CEOs so that they can mentor other young entrepreneurs.
One key thing that we have to know as a country is that the backbone of economic drive lies on the demographic dividend, that is young people. If we empower young people, we promote young people to venture into business, it means we're going to have a very big base of the population that are going to be paying tax. For a country to move forward, we need taxes. And if we don't promote the hub that is supposed to contribute to the tax, then it means we're failing. And
Minister of Youth and Sports, Suleiman Sungama, agrees that the youth are very critical and says government was doing something about it.
Look at the Malawi's population. The biggest number is the youth. Over 50% are the young people. So as a government, we believe that if we are going to work with the youth, if we are going to promote the youth, if we are going to empower the youth, for sure, we are going to deal with many challenges that we face as a nation. So there is a fund. We're still discussing with the National Youth Council of Malawi to make sure that we establish this fund to help young entrepreneurs.
In assisting young people to achieve their goals in business, the National Youth Council of Malawi is working with SMED, whose Director of Business is Saulos Chilima.
We noticed an opportunity actually. The mandate of SMED and the mandate of NICOM are almost similar. So the youth is one component which now NICOM is focusing on. We found it necessary that we partner to take advantage of the resources that we have. So they put resources, we put resources together to make more milestones.
One of the young CEOs, Zelina Kamaliza, found the gathering very important.
This is a great platform, particularly looking at the network that we can be able to build as young CEOs, because for growth, you just don't grow yourself. It's in networking, talking to other people, you learn from each other.
The majority of the country's population are young people. For Zodiak, this is Madali Tsupiri reporting.
And earlier this week, government eased some COVID-19 restriction measures that were put in place in January this year as it controlled the spread of the pandemic. The Minister of Health, Kwagwanji Chiponda, who also chairs the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, made the announcement. The new measures took effect on Friday after they were gazetted.
Chairperson of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Kwagwanji Chiponda, who is also Minister of Health, said the task force met to discuss the situation where infection cases have recently decreased. Chiponda said for this, the committee saw it fit to ease the restrictions, but warned that Malawians should not relax but continue observing social distancing, washing hands, sanitizing and wearing masks. Some of the restrictions that have been eased include indoor gatherings from 50 to 100 people, 250 for outdoor events, and 75% sitting capacity in public transport from 60%. Further, businesses can have a sigh of relief as they can now operate to until 10 p.m. from 8 p.m., whereas entertainment joints can now operate until midnight, but not beyond that.
The regulations which we have said today, they come into effect on Friday, not today. No bar should go up to 12 midnight today. The regulations which I've talked about, they come into effect on Friday. As a task force, we are going to review them after 4 weeks to see if we are adhering and indeed to assess the situation on the ground.
Implementation of the new regulations will start this Friday, paving way for gazetting. For Zodiac, I am Weston Guta.
And on Tuesday this week, President Lazarus Chakwera opened the 2021 tobacco selling season with a promise to improve the industry to motivate farmers. At the launch of the market, the president conceded that the industry is facing numerous challenges which mostly impact on the grower as a major player who is losing out on their toil. He called on stakeholders in the sector to find a cure on such imbalances for the sake of the country's economy and profit. Winston Kaimira was there.
In his speech, President Lazarus Chakwera commended farmers for producing tobacco of high quality this year, despite the fact that supply is lower than demand on the market. President Chakwera said players in the sector must stop the tendency of setting levy on tobacco sales without the approval of government. He asked the Ministry of Agriculture to facilitate a process in which issues of low prices, child labor and regulation of the market can be addressed. The president, however, acknowledged that tobacco use is declining globally. He asked the Ministry of Agriculture to start preparing for a transition process which shall see the crop being removed from the pillars of the country's economy. Speaking earlier, Tobacco Commission Chairperson Harry Nkandawire said the commission is using the Tobacco Industry Act of 2019 as its weapon in ensuring sanity in the industry by controlling cross-border trade and eliminating child labor, among other interventions. On her part, AHO Group Chairperson Derisire Matondo Piri complained that the company is going through financial challenges which have led to delays in payment of salaries to its staff. She, however, said operational reforms are in place to deal with the challenge. Tobacco sales at Chinkoma auction floors shall open on 26th of April, while Mzuzu and Limbe auction floors shall open on 4th May.
Let's now turn to sports. The Malawi Olympic Committee MOC says it will use part of its funding from the Olympic Solidarity to revive minority sports discipline ahead of the 2025 Olympic Games. The Solidarity is an arm of the International Olympic Committee. Currently, the committee is pushing for 4 sporting disciplines, namely athletics, judo, swimming and archery, to qualify for Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games this July in Japan. Sam Banda with details.
Speaking in Lilongwe Monday on the sidelines of the closing ceremony for the 10-day table tennis Level 1 coaching course, Banda said a few sporting disciplines will represent Malawi at the Olympic Games in Japan because many were affected by COVID-19 pandemic, which derailed their preparations and qualifiers. He said the Malawi Olympic Committee has taken a holistic approach towards the revival of sporting disciplines that have been idle due to lack of adequate funding and other necessary resources, and the first step was the provision of technical expertise using funding from the Olympic Solidarity. According to Banda, the committee is targeting a large number of sporting codes representing the country at the next Olympic Games in 2025 or 2026.
We are trying to give opportunity to each and every sport so that maybe through those opportunities they can be able to produce athletes that can qualify for our Olympic Games and those big events. If we don't develop technically, then we're not going to do very well in terms of competing with those highly profile athletes in the world stage.
Meanwhile, a 10-day table tennis Level 1 coaching course has ended in Lilongwe. Table Tennis Association of Malawi Vice President Tom Muhango says the association expects the 16 participants to be active in their respective areas.
We're expecting them to coach the youths, the young ones, the skills that they have acquired from this course. We also make sure that we move around to monitor the progress of the training so that by the end of the 4 years, they should be able to participate in the Olympic Games.
Kenyan table tennis expert Michael Kulia facilitated the workshop.
And that's all we had time for in this edition of This Week in the News. A reminder of some of the top stories before we leave you. Body of the country's former Vice President, Dr. Justin Malewezi, laid to rest in Lilongwe. MHRC finds forms of racial discrimination in an arrangement in which a private clinic in Blantyre was planning to provide COVID-19 vaccination to Asians. National Youth Council of Malawi says if empowered, the country's youths could spur economic growth. Malawi Olympic Committee says it will use part of its funding to revive minority sports ahead of the 2025 Olympic Games. Visit www.zodiacmalawi.com for more news. Thanks for watching. My name is Chancellor Zabanda. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
To be honest, my community is my playground for where I pick up my creativity.
After all, it's our story.